Dude, you look like shit.
Just in the first stage of my new diet. I only eat steaks now.
Just steaks?
Yup.
What about veggies like broccoli or carrots?
Nope.
But that's crazy. That's crazy. We're omnivores for a reason. You can't just eat steak for every meal.
Why not?
Dude, your heart is going to burst out of your chest like Alien. Your cholesterol must be crazy high.
Yeah, but you haven't read all the literature on it.
What literature?
Medium and Joe Rogan.
Bro, those don't count. You need shit from like a database or a university or even a professional with a degree. Even then, their arguments aren't always right, but something off of a pop culture magazine isn't any better.
Yeah, so like Jordan Peterson? Jordan Peterson does this too.
Dude, you need to start eating regularly. You're starting to worry me, man.
You need to eat 3 pounds of butter a day. Taking 1 ice bath a day will burn an excess 900 calories a day. If you want to be able to get your dream house, you first need to manifest a stable income. If you want to be able to handle conflict within your day-to-day life, you need to be able to separate yourself from your emotions. Practice mindfulness on a daily basis, and you should see a vast improvement in your interpersonal communication.
Huh, that sounds kinda true, actually, but I don't entirely agree with it either. Huh. You good? Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head all around this. Around what? Like, why is there so much BS self-help advice in the world? And not only that, some of it actually sounds true. Like, I listen to some of this stuff, and logically it makes sense, but deep down in my gut, I feel like it's all off. Okay, well, let's take a look at it this way. What's some pop psychology that you see nowadays? What do you mean by pop psychology? Like, stereotypical self-help advice a lot of internet gurus spit out nowadays. Mindfulness, that's a pretty popular topic. Okay, so I'm just going to list off a bunch of scenarios and tell me if they relate to mindfulness. Okay. You're arguing with a coworker and need to take a step back. Yeah, that could work. Could use mindfulness there. You're having a panic attack and need to calm down. Sure, that too. You have PTSD and just woke up from a nightmare. I guess mindfulness could still work. Like, it helped the person calm down a bit. You've been clinically diagnosed with bipolar disorder and can't handle mood swings. I guess, sure that works. Yeah, like the person could just take a moment to meditate and try and cope with the situation. That's the problem. Theory has explanatory power, and it has logical bearing. You even came up with a way to utilize mindfulness in some of these situations, but a single theory shouldn't be able to explain everything you come across. Like, here's an analogy. So, once upon a time, in a magical faraway land called Austria. Austria isn't a fairy tale land. Well, it is now. Austria is gone, and Germany is unified. Anyways, there was once this philosopher named Karl Popper who was living in Austria, and in his earlier years, he worked under this famous doctor, Alfred Adler. So one day, Popper was out collecting psychological data on young working class men. He then reported the data to Adler, who immediately retrofitted all the data to fit one of his theories. Okay, so I can see why it's wrong to do that. Not every little thing can be explained by a single theory, especially when it comes to psychology, but here's the thing. Even if Adler retrofitted all the data, I'm sure it still made sense for him to do so. Like, I'm sure there was still a logical explanation behind all his bullshitting. Well, a theory can't be wrong if there's no real way to disprove it. Let's use manifestation as an example. Let's say there's this guy named Jim, and he suffers from general anxiety disorder. He's incredibly neurotic, and it's gotten to the point that he can't function as well as he used to and struggles with his daily tasks. Now, let's say he starts getting into manifestation. Every day he manifests and imagines a better future for himself, which quells some of his anxiety. It's at this point a self-help guru would say that mindfulness was an effective medicine to his disorder, but we have no real criteria to work off of here. All we know is that Jim feels better, but we have no empirical data to work off of. By what percentage did his anxiety decrease? What percentage of the drop in anxiety can actually be attributed to manifestation? Did manifestation actually generate a better future for Jim? Is there some sort of metaphysical mechanism that allows our thoughts to conjure up certain objects and events out of thin air? Jim manifested and he feels better. There's an obvious cause and effect relationship here, but there's no real way for us to attribute manifestation to a decrease in anxiety. If we can't disprove something, we can't say it's wrong, but a theory shouldn't be right about everything. Okay, but there must be some theories that have some validity to them, otherwise all of psychology would be BS. And that's not true. There's axioms, there's things that we know to be true. So how do we separate good theories from bad theories? How can we tell good self-help from bad self-help? Well, one philosopher, Thomas Kuhn, argued that there are 5 criteria for a good scientific theory. The first 2 criteria are accuracy and consistency. In other words, the results have to be similar to other pre-established results. The theory has to be consistent with current theories. Like, if I make a theory about how mindfulness decreases stress, it has to have similar results and explanatory power as the other theories on meditation and stress. Third criteria is scope. Let's say that my theory on mindfulness explains why meditation decreases stress. And let's say 3 years down the line, some scientist discovers that there's a specific neurological pathway that makes it so that when you meditate, your stress receptors are less active. My theory should have some overlap with that other theory. Otherwise, my scope is too narrow and it loses a lot of explanatory power. The fourth criteria is that it should explain some sort of phenomenon. Like, if I see someone meditate and they're less stressed out, I should have a reasonable explanation for it. Perhaps deep breathing increases oxygen levels and triggers some sort of physiological reaction that helps reduce the number of stress receptors. The fifth and final criteria is that it should further future explanations. Going back to my example of the neuroscientist discovering a new pathway, my theory on meditation should be able to help that neuroscientist explain why their theory works. Yeah, but there's still some glaring issues here. Even with these criteria, let's say we have 2 similar theories. Using these criteria, they compete with each other, and not only that, they're right or wrong depending on how recent each theory is. Let's say we're comparing 2 theories, one from Copernicus and one from Ptolemy. Since accuracy deals with how agreeable a theory is to other pre-established results, Ptolemy's theory is superior since it's older and there's much more pre-established data to corroborate with it. Meanwhile, Copernicus's theory is seen as more consistent since it was developed more recently and thus relates to more current theories. So we have a contradictory relationship between consistency and accuracy. If a theory is old, then it's accurate but not consistent. If a theory is newer, then it's not accurate but is consistent. Firstly, accuracy is not always dependent on how old a theory is. Something doesn't have to be ancient in order for it to be well established. It more so has to do with how agreeable a theory is with pre-established results and experiments. A scientist named Johannes Kepler was then able to improve the accuracy of Copernicus's theory by making it more unified with established data. But if we had just disregarded Copernicus's theory based on its age and recency, then it never would have been improved upon in the first place. Secondly, consistency also isn't dependent on recency and age. The criteria here is whether or not it's consistent with current theories. Of course, the chances of that happening may decrease with age as we begin to discover new things and have different shifts in paradigms, but this criteria mostly deals with which field the theory is being applied to. So in this case, relevance isn't determined by age, but rather by its application to the right field. Overall, these 2 mechanisms aren't age-dependent, they're more so dependent on application and revision. A younger theory can be more well-established through revision, and an older theory can become more consistent if it's applied to its relevant field of study. Okay, I'm glad we cleared that up, but this is starting to get very logical and very complicated. Oh, sorry about that. No, it's fine, it's just let's reel it back in a little bit. How does this help me with my question? Well, now you have a framework that allows you to see whether or not a theory is bullshit. A lot of internet gurus spit out psychological theories as self-help advice, but they only do so at a very surface level. So with these 5 criteria, you can now see what parts of their advice are missing, or which parts are made up, or which parts require clarification. Has their advice been revised by other industry professionals? Is their advice actually applicable to the field of psychology? Does this advice have any overlap with other similar pieces pieces of advice, and can this advice help explain those other pieces of advice? And most importantly, is there a reasonable explanation on why this advice works? If an internet guru spouts out some stuff about psychology and it's logically consistent with all these questions, then we have reason to believe in it. Of course, these criteria aren't the end-all be-all, but at least they give us some sort of guideline to work with. Thanks, Righty. I'm now going to use this newfound knowledge and help my friend.
Ow! What are you doing?
I'm trying to help you as a friend!
Stop it.
Accept the gift of my knowledge!